it was going to ruin me. They were going to use something against me. I don't understand what. Maybe just try to make me look like a floozy again. Or I think that's probably what it was. Just wanting to degrade me, maybe. And then when I left and I went outside, there were other people also mocking me. I mainly remember the woman in the lobby because she was waiting for me. She was waiting for me, and she made a point in everything that she did to let me know that she thought she had me on something. And then and that was a time when also he appeared out of the blue, when only pretty much Nikki knew where I was going, at least that I was aware of, because of, you know, maybe this microchip thing is helpful to someone or a group. But she, if we're talking about aside from that, the person who knew where I was going out was Nikki, because she had come back. She had just gotten back from being away, and I wasn't house sitting for her anymore. And then I was staying there one more night. Or she was basically saying, actually, that I couldn't stay there another night. That's why I even went out. She said, you can't stay here another night. And she showed up unexpectedly before she was going to be back, because she said I had the entire week. So I didn't have anything else arranged, and she showed up unexpectedly ahead of time before she said she was going to be back. And then she told me I couldn't stay there. And she tried to blame it on her housemates. Yeah, my housemates are just not comfortable with that. And so then she said, why don't you go out and try to meet somebody? So that's how she put that to me. And that was one time. And then a different time that I met somebody was the time I met this Jewish guy. And nothing happened with him. But I do remember that was kind of a weird situation. So it was like maybe the very next day, or probably not the next day, but like in the same week, because I was still trying to figure out how to put things together. Because I had been paying my own rent in Arlington, Virginia, at the high-rise. Well, I think that I was trying to, at that time, what was I doing? Maybe around, I think about that time I was still at the high-rise. Well, wait a second. I can't remember exactly where it was in the juncture of being there. I remember I was in between places for some reason. Whether it was, and I didn't have money for my own to get an apartment myself at that time, or had spent my money on an apartment already for some reason. And from there, so anyway, then, as I say, I was at this one 7th story place. Then he said that I had to go, or he was leaving. And when he was leaving with the guy from Morocco, who actually, I was approached by somebody from Israel at the same time. So I'm staying at this house with this guy from Morocco. And then a guy from Israel named Daniel, wanted to talk to me. I remember there was this blonde woman who was watching me the entire time, and she was also from Israel, I believe. So then all he did was listen to me and talk to me, and then he called me later when I was at this place with the Moroccan guy, and they acted like they were getting in a fight, but for all I know, they were friends. I mean, how does anybody know in that town? It's really hard to tell. And then when this Moroccan man was leaving, or shutting, closing his apartment down after everyone, I guess, thought, or somebody thought, that I had a place lined up with the guy from the Radio Shack. he had a yard sale. He said he was selling some of his things, and he called it the insane sale. He started making fun of me and started trying to mock me as being insane. And I thought, why is he trying to make me sound insane when I've just been tortured by technology in his apartment? I didn't ever tell him that. I never said to him, have you noticed anything weird because I feel like I'm being tortured here. I mean, I never said a word to him about that. I kept it to myself. And yet all of a sudden he was kind of calling me like nuts and saying it was an insane sale. So I was being made fun of, and people were coming up and trying to buy things. While I was pregnant, I'm sitting in the house and they're coming through the house looking for things to buy. I remember one individual who came upstairs and was looking around was Jewish. You know, and so it was a big joke. The insane yard sale. Why that Moroccan man went from being halfway decent to calling it the insane sale and kind of making fun of me, I don't really know. I don't know if he was maybe CIA. Because how would he know that this other person, maybe he was a different group, I don't know. How would he know that I was actually on the phone talking to this one guy when I asked him, you know, if I have to have a place to go to, would that work out? And I was trying to find something else, but that's where I ended up. So then I was at the hospital. Then my baby died. They took me to an ultrasound machine to see if there was still a heartbeat, and there wasn't. There was no movement. I saw it on the screen myself. The baby was not moving. And there was no heartbeat. The baby was, you could see every single part of it. And then they basically told me it had died. And I left, and I couldn't believe, and that was it. And they said, you'll just miscarry naturally. So after 1 month went by and I hadn't miscarried, I was looking online and I read some places the baby will miscarry on its own. Like a couple months. Like some women carry the baby for a couple months and the baby might be dead, but then eventually the body will quote unquote expel the fetus, is what they say. And you'll miscarry. And then other times I was reading that they say if it's longer than a few weeks or a month, you should go in to have it checked out. So after a month had gone by, I didn't know if it would be toxic in any way to continue carrying a baby that wasn't alive. And I went into that hospital again and they did another ultrasound because I was hoping maybe it was alive. Oh, and the one time that I did go to their one ultrasound, they said that it was malfunctioning. It kept going off and on and doing all kinds of things. So then I went in again and they said that the baby was dead. And I was having like some bleeding, a little bit of bleeding, but it wasn't like it's just a normal process. I've been bleeding a little bit off and on for a really long time. So then when I was at the hospital, they said they were going to give me a pill, and they said this is going to encourage your body to complete the miscarriage. And, you know, basically they had murdered my baby. When you could hear, it wasn't like somebody just said the MRI machine was malfunctioning. I could hear it malfunctioning. It made this weird sound. It stopped and then it started and then it stopped and started and wasn't doing the normal thing. And so then they said I had to take this pill and go home, and they kept telling me go home and take it. And I hadn't even read the directions on the pill. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it did. But I had an instinct that told me if I went home and took that pill, I might die. Like, what if I bled to death? And I just had this weird feeling that it was not safe for me to take that pill and go to the house and then have everybody at work, you know, everyone else is working, and then I just happen to be at the house, and what, I am, you know, maybe I have some weird reaction to it. And I felt a little bit of fear because I think I knew that something might go wrong. And sure enough, it did. I demanded that I stay there and take it. I said, I want to take it here and make sure everything happens okay. So I took it there, and then I was in extreme pain. I was in so much pain. I mean, if I had done that at home and I didn't even have access to painkillers, it would have been torture. I was in severe pain. I had to have narcotic painkillers, and they didn't even nearly give me enough for it. Basically tried to put me into a whole labor thing all over again. It was excruciating. And so they gave me some painkillers, and then I bled. I hemorrhaged, and I hemorrhaged a lot, like beyond the normal amount. But then when they said the baby had come out, the unborn baby that had not been living anymore, I said I wanted to see it. I said I want to see it, and they looked at me like, no. And I kept saying I want to see it. And then they brought it in. And I looked at it, and I saw that it was a boy. It was about 3.5 months along. Every single part of that baby was formed. It had everything. It had eyelids, ears. The ears were not just little stubs. It already had a shape. The ears already had a shape. The mouth had a shape. The baby had an expression. It had, I'm sure that babies don't get their coloring until later, but it had blonde eyebrows. Very, very light. The lightest kind of hair that you've ever seen, and it had those eyebrows. And it had perfectly formed fingers with fingernails. You could see where the fingernails started. And even the boy part had all of the parts, and every part of it was normal and fully developed. I looked at the back, full skeleton, full vertebrae all the way down the back, little bottom, little legs, feet. It was like seeing a baby that someone carries into a store, and it was just a little bit smaller. And the other thing was that as soon as I saw the baby, I was not delusional, and I'm not making this up, the baby looked exactly like Chris Dabney. It looked exactly like the father. And sometimes you wouldn't think that something that small could really have features that set it apart yet, but it did. So I think I cried, and then I decided that I was going to name it, and and then I gave it back to them, but then I told them later, I signed papers saying that I wanted to be in charge of what happened to the fetus and not to destroy it.